Ladies and gentlemen and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast. I'm Rotten Deadite from a different angle today. And with me today are...
I am James, also known as Aramithius.
I'm Andrew, also known as the White Dwarf.
And I'm Nick.
Andrew is portable today. He's walking the lore dog.
Mm-hmm.
But I assume he'll be home in a minute. And today we're talking about the Thieves Guild. We, because we're covering all the guilds, and the Thieves Guild is next, and that's literally it. Because if we weren't covering the guilds, we honestly probably wouldn't have much to say about them. I hate to poison the cast ahead of time, but like, I mean, it's the Thieves Guild. So,
Little Hemlock does.
yeah, and I think, yeah, Thieves Guild quests are rarely about the guild itself. That's actually a really good way to start this, to sort of just discuss kind of like the meta of the Thieves Guild quests in various games. They are nearly always about the characters in the guild. They're not necessarily about the guild itself. I guess you could probably actually say that about most guild quests, actually, now that I think about it. I mean, the Mages Guild in Skyrim is largely about a MacGuffin and one really irritating Thalmor rep.
In general, you could probably say the same about heist movies, too.
Well, yeah, that is also... Well, but heist movies are about the planning of the heist, you know? I mean, yeah, they're about the relation of the character, but I mean, Thieves Guild quests are rarely about stealing, necessarily. And they're more about, like, the stealing itself is, like, you know, a thing that you do. But they're, I mean, like, for example, take the Thieves Guild quests in Oblivion is a very interesting quest that revolves around somebody who isn't you.
Long way, Chris. Well, I think there's a lot in the span of the Thieves Guilds that we've had so far. It seems like honor among thieves is a pretty common theme.
Yeah.
So it's you know, what rules do thieves follow that, you know, that separates them from someone like the Dark Brotherhood or the Morg Tong or whatever. That seems to be, if not a main focus, it's certainly a foundation.
To the point even where I think in Oblivion, your quest to pay your blood price and get yourself back into the guild is actually directly says regain your honor among thieves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And although that
point.
In ESO, that's actually thoroughly intentional. That they kind of that they've actually effectively said there is a guy whose name I can't remember. I checked this morning and my brain has gone blank. But he's literally that you'll find a book in most of the games that will say don't kill while you steal, don't steal from beggars, and don't steal from other guild members, and various other things that basically turn you almost into Robin Hood type figures. Whereas the stuff that happens in ESO, the guys literally comes in from Hammerfell, and these as kind of the implication almost from Yokuda, that he's saying, like, right, this is the tenets of the organization that I run. There are probably other thieves guilds out there. We're going to take them out, and we're going to have everyone follow the kind of rules that I want to follow. So there's obviously the undercurrent of this goes obviously quite successful in what he was doing in kind of going out and promulgating those sorts of moral thieves guilds, because that's one of the things that kind of honestly bugs me from a continuity standpoint, that within the Elder Scrolls and the Thieves Guild, is that there is any continuity really between the guilds at all, and that there is a Thieves Guild presence, because it'd just be a bunch of outlaws otherwise. But there is this kind of sense of a...
Oops, bye, James. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Okay. Oh, deep joy. I'm cutting out.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. Where did you lose me?
Literally just a second ago. So yeah.
Oh, okay. But yeah, you have this kind of sense of the Thieves Guild as a thing. I think a lot of that is kind of tropey.
Mm-hmm.
But it also, in this kind of footing that it gives it in ESO, kind of lays the groundwork for having kind of a proto guild and the kind of seeds of what Thieves Guilds should be. kind of laid throughout because of this particular thing. It's in a Lawmaster's archive somewhere. I will dig it up and go into a bit more detail about who it was that said it, but that's kind of my basic outline, because there is that moral element to it, that is that honor among thieves, but which I don't know. It almost feels like a cop out, because they're wanting you to still be the good guy and play the Thieves Guild.
Right.
But that's probably more of an accusation for the Dark Brotherhood than the Thieves, in all honesty.
Well, and that's actually a very interesting point, that the Dark Brotherhood gives you the ability. Well, I mean, something that a lot of Elder Scrolls players have been asking for a really long time was the ability to play as a bad guy or as a good guy or something like that. You know, they want quest lines and so on that give you the ability to play an evil character. And it's a fair criticism, because quite a lot of what are supposedly, you know, open-ended branching computer RPGs are frequently just sort of, do you want to choose the selfish, the chaotic good, or the or the lawful good plot solution? They almost never end up giving you or is there a selfless or a selfish solution? And something that the Dark Brotherhood quests seem to be doing was giving you the ability to play as a psychopath and a murderer, and then and still somehow or another have an overall plot and some kind of way of moving things forward for people. But before we get onto that, I actually kind of want to discuss something that you were skirting around, which is the idea of a guild for thieves in the first place, and the idea of like honor among thieves and so on. Why would I have some ideas, but why do you think a guild of thieves would worry about honor? What's the constructive point? What's the perks of a thieves guild having honor or whatever?
It means a bit more in the way of kind of social cohesion. There is my immediate thought, because you've got people who will look out for each other. Because there is one book, I think I think it was with Daggerfall. It was basically saying that it almost kind of argued itself into a corner, saying that thieves have no honor. They're all selfish. So thieves guilds are impossible. Oh no, it was a book that was in Oblivion. That was saying that
there's no thieves guild.
There's no thieves guild. There can't possibly be a thieves guild because thieves are selfish. Was kind of the key takeaway, and they can't possibly work together. And that kind of has to hold if you want an enduring organization, particularly an organization that works outside of the law. It needs to have a cause that is that kind of makes it hang together without that legal framework. If you have to go through the transgressions of joining an organization that is explicitly to do illegal things, it needs to be something that you're either compelled to do or you have a reason to do. Like if you look at real world crime syndicates and things like the mafia, there's things like family loyalty and so on that will bind you to that, at least in the traditional sense. And there's also this kind of sense of, but I say power and money and so on, but that doesn't really seem to be a motivational factor for any thieves guild in the Elder Scrolls, bizarrely enough, which is really odd. I don't understand why.
The transmute spell exists.
There was a hierarchy of highwaymen in France that did try to have some rules in the 13th century: no murder, robbing, or don't rob the poor, don't rob the clergy. Yeah, and there is some historical precedent for criminal organizations that have guidelines, or like honor and dignity and that kind of stuff. But generally speaking, it seems to me like a lot of those laws may at first have been just created, or guidelines or whatever, may have been just created to help people within the guild get along within the guild, to stop the murderous backstabbers and kleptomaniacs from stealing and murdering from each other. You have to have like a set of rules. And the mob in the early 20th century. Okay, yeah. And yeah, Captain's right. It could also be like, you know, a way of keeping branches of the Thieves Guild from fighting with each other and so on. But
in regard to not stealing from beggars,
right,
if you're an outlaw stealing from beggars, I mean, they have nothing.
Yes,
and all you're doing is kind of kicking the hornet's nest and removing an informant from your network.
Well, true, but as people will point out, depending on where you're a beggar, you can make some pretty decent money. And there are some. It is theoretically possible for a beggar to set up shop right outside of outside of like a stock market or something like that, somewhere where there's a lot of people with more money than sense. And rake in a pretty healthy amount of money, and then all of a sudden they've got a pocket full of change and no security. So it makes them an interesting mark for somebody who has less money and less morals, you know. So stealing from beggars is turning them into informants. It's also a very good point, Captain. Yeah, beggars would have no problem on ratting on who stole from them. I mean, that's what part of the problem with being a thief is that, as anybody will tell you, as any law enforcement officer will tell you, if something is stolen in a particular kind of neighborhood, depending on where the neighborhood is, if somebody breaks into somebody's house in that neighborhood, the cops are going to know who did it, and they don't even have to ask. And it was just the case when my parents' house was broken into in East New Orleans many years ago, decades ago. When they called the cops and told them that somebody had broken into their house, the police the officer who showed up knew exactly who it was. He was like, I know, like, because when thieves, generally speaking, work in very small, they don't travel across town to steal from people. They steal where they're comfortable, and they steal with in places that are familiar to them. Because the feeling of safety is something that thieves are, like anybody, constantly worrying about. And in this particular case, the guy knew exactly who had stolen the keys to my dad's car, and then later my dad's car. And so he knew where to look, and lo and behold, after the kid drove off with my dad's car, literally an hour or two later, the police officer shows up with this kid in handcuffs. Like, you know, it basically told my mother, I'll take a steak dinner. Because it's very rare to actually catch somebody when they steal something. And he pulled this guy over literally in my dad's car. And so so generally speaking, people in a broad sense, in the most frequent sense, people who steal small, so to speak, are going to steal where they're comfortable, and that means in a very limited range, a very limited area, and that means that the police officers who are patrolling that area, who know that area, are going to know who it is, and are going to know which people are most suspicious and have a predilection to stealing, and it makes them easier to find and shake down and so on. Knowing the beaked is one of the best tools a police officer can have, is just knowing the people and knowing who's got trouble with drugs, who's got trouble with money, who's just got a bad, hair in them and just does stupid shit, and so the idea of not stealing from beggars makes a lot of sense, because beggars will roll over for you. And they don't have anything to lose. And if you steal what little they have, they're gonna be angry,
Yeah, it's almost that the Thieves Guild is set up in saying don't steal from beggars. It's that they're actively trying to avoid precisely what you just described.
Mm-hmm.
That it's
it strikes me. Sorry, go ahead. Continue. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say that was more or less my point. That if you've got an organization that is going to say you only steal the big stuff, and will send you across town to steal specific things, if you take, say, the Radiant quests in the Elder Scrolls V, it avoids all of those pitfalls. It's an interesting piece of organizational security almost.
I think Yeah, I think it kind of echoes Robin Hood tropes a little bit. Robin Hood and his band of merry men, and they steal from the rich to give to the poor. It's an equalizing strategy. So
yeah,
I mean that could be in Oblivion why they say do not steal from beggars, because we are their protection. We are their, we're here for them. We're not going to undercut our whole point to steal from them. Like you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, the Thieves Guild in Oblivion had some kind of a relationship with beggars, though, didn't they?
Yeah, I know. The homeless are considered like the Gray Foxes, kind of like a primitive internet service. Like
right.
Hey, what's going on in in Leowin? Well, let's see. My homeless network reports that such and such count is in town, and he brought a whole bag of money. Oh, really? Yeah, that kind of thing.
Informants, yeah. Right, Captain.
So why is Namira not more involved with the Thieves Guild then? Just to ask a probably a painfully obvious question to which there is no answer.
I think that would have more to do with the connotation of beggar, right? So while the Thieves Guild, that connotation of beggar or homeless is very, very Robin Hood, very almost how do I put it? Righteous, I guess, in a sense. Namira's outlook on beggars is squalor and poor health and stuck in the dirty corners of society, and so it's just a different way of looking at it.
That's fair enough. Although there is that book that says that if you want to know something, go ask the beggars. Was kind of where I was kind of picking up on that.
Gotcha.
It just feels like kind of a natural synergy almost that if someone is born into poverty, say that then it just kind of they almost have the Thieves Guild as a social security net, and then kind of graduate into being thieves themselves in quite a Dickensian way. But anyway,
the thing that strikes me is Namira has domain over the beggars who have lost hope.
Okay.
The Thieves Guild, and by extension, I guess Nocturnal, is more the beggars who haven't given up yet.
So maybe it has something to do with hope versus the hopeless, or maybe despair or something like that.
Yeah,
maybe.
The beggars have kind of given in and accepted their terrible position, and they just kind of roll over and are like, well, there's no point fighting it. That's a little more.
Well, let me suggest this. I would say that the Thieves Guild in Oblivion is in a different place than the Thieves Guild in Skyrim. I mean, not physical place.
Yeah.
I mean, of course it's physical place, but I mean, it's it serves a different purpose. The Thieves Guild in Skyrim seems to be like the unofficial mercenary arm of a very rich, corrupt, wealthy person in Riften.
Yes.
Whereas, or at least that seems to be where they're getting the majority of their funding from, is from basically working for a meadery.
Well, I think it's worth saying that there's no consistent centralization of the various Thieves Guilds. They're not a singular entity like the Mages Guild is. They are isolated. They're their own thing that just happen to share, a descriptor that, this is a guild of thieves, so we'll call them the Thieves Guild. Sort of thing.
Yeah.
And there's also the different socioeconomic conditions of Cyrodiil right before the Oblivion Crisis versus Skyrim in the midst of a awful civil war and post 2 apocalypses.
Yeah. And being flooded by Dunmer refugees. And that's it does sort of make sense that like Oblivion. Let's see, in Oblivion and Cyrodiil, they weren't really recovering from any particular catastrophe or anything at that point. The all the nonsense that happens in Morrowind was largely didn't really affect Cyrodiil very much. So they'd been doing pretty good for the past, at least, I'm gonna stick my head out and say something stupid, but maybe 100 years or so. Things have been okay.
Mm-hmm. Well, how long was the Legend of the Grey Fox going?
300 years.
Yeah, a minute.
I think that's a reasonable benchmark.
So of course they had this. They had a different relationship with their craft. Some people in chat are pointing out. Actually, Vermin, is pointing out that the idea of like a master thief is sort of a myth, because if you're good enough and practiced enough to be an unbelievably good thief, who's just incredibly agile and, knows all these, informants and has this amazing equipment and is incredibly skillful at like picking locks and so on, then you've dedicated so much of your life and time to being a thief that by definition you probably don't need to be a thief, so you won't be one. So like, for example, the amount of time that it takes for you to figure out how to be an astonishingly good at lockpicking, you could have been like that's time that you would have normally needed to be out stealing stuff. Oh, okay, Gore's moving. Oh no, too late. This is the time that you spent, practicing and so on is time that you would have normally had to have been out stealing just to survive. So if you have the time to practice to be a master lockpick, then you don't need to pick locks because you've got money or a job or something. And if you are, for example, a locksmith, and therefore really good at picking locks, you're already a locksmith. Why do you need to steal stuff? You've got a job. You're good. You've got a career.
That fundamentally confuses me as to why locksmiths aren't automatically suspect, even in this world. Because
because this is something that Tord was pointing out in chat, is that a lot of people who become career criminals, who are stealing at a certain level of theft, are doing it for the thrill of it, not because they need it. Yeah. They're addicted to it in the same way that gamblers are addicted to gambling or similar. They want the adrenaline.
In a similar way, even beyond individuals, organizations that start off illegitimate often end up going legit. There's like the mafia, like a branch of the mafia in like Detroit or something, started a pizza place and it's doing so well that they just all went legit.
Yeah.
And by the way, if you're ever in a city and you sit down and the only people eating at the Italian restaurant are Italians in suits, keep eating. The food's probably really good.
Yeah, first off, there's nothing to worry about, and secondly, you're probably eating pretty good food.
Yeah, because there's not a single mobster that's going to settle for subpar pizza. Yeah,
or subpar anything. And in the case of and that's because one of the things that a lot of police officers and like the FBI and so on will echo is that in the United States, once you reach a certain level of needed income, it's way easier to make it legally than it is to make it illegally. The only exceptions to that being really shady, awful shit on the stock market, or white collar crime is what I would call it. But like at that point, violent crime drops dramatically because because it's just way easier to make money through nonviolent crime. In other words, extortion or blackmail or embezzlement usually is what it usually is. Not blackmail. Embezzlement is usually what you're working in. And that's you could argue that's a good thing.
Hey, trauma surgeons would.
I have something to add for that thrill-seeking sort of thing. It doesn't even necessarily have to be about the thrill necessarily, but rather kind of a daredevil's approach of, can I do this?
Right.
Mm-hmm. Can I achieve this thing? No, I don't need to.
I just want to see if I can do it.
But can I do it? Can I steal an Elder Scroll from under the noses of the Ancestor Moth priests?
Yeah, and it's the same kind of thing that drives people to climb mountains. You know, they're doing it because they want to see if they're capable of doing it, not whether. I mean, the actually successfully climbing it is irrelevant.
Well, that like a counterculture kind of thing. You know, like, oh, society has these rules, but fuck these rules. I'm gonna do things my way. I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to rationalize.
Yeah.
Why, you know, what would go on in someone's head to make them,
and
you know,
particularly in the Elder Scrolls universe, I suspect there were historical examples, but I can't think of any off the top of my head. You also have a religious or cult component to that kind of behavior as well. See also the Nightingales.
Although that wasn't something that was commonly known amongst the membership. I think that I think that possibly it kind of gets overplayed a bit with just because of how the quest line goes in the Elder Scrolls V, more than anything else. But there is that kind of that sense of organizational belonging almost. The kind of at least I get that sense from that game. Whereas they kind of go that like, oh, go speak to this guy. He's a kind of a former member who has got contacts with the Brotherhood sort of thing. That again, it gets kind of fraternal almost, and I'm almost struggling to think. I think there's possibly something similar in the Thieves Guild and the Elder Scrolls 3. There's a few books there that essentially point out that we're not the Kimono Tong,
right?
Sort of thing, and so we do things differently because we're not the Kimono Tong. That's the sense of having the pride in the organization as the organization rather than what it's doing.
And I think the Thieves Guild doesn't take itself as seriously as the Kimono Tong does. I think that's, you know, kind of they're almost like a, you know, more like a rugby club than a, you know, just like they're getting together. They're doing blow down in the basement, having a good time. You know,
hooligans. That's what we're looking at here.
Yeah. Whereas the Kimono Tongs, you know, they're you know, shady back room, you know, playing poker in the dark kind of.
Yeah, the Kimono Tong feel an awful lot more like a crime syndicate than the Thieves Guild do.
Yeah,
the Thieves Guild feels like the fine gentleman's thrill-seeking club almost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we got Gentleman Jim Stacy, so I mean, we know gentlemen are accounted for. So.
Yeah, and that's fine. The problem, I think, is that it can be very difficult from an author's standpoint to write a compelling plot line about thieves, because intrinsically you run into a point where you have to you eventually are going to have to wrestle with the topic of, are these people a bunch of sons of bitches or not, you know? And that can be a little bit rough. The Thieves Guild and Skyrim made a lot of sense to me because they were basically working for a shady business person, and that made a lot of sense. From like of course they're gonna I mean, they're a guild because they need a bunch of people to do these relatively complex jobs.
Yeah, they need some form of union or something.
Yeah, some kind of teamwork.
That
is a pretty good way of putting it.
But I mean, when, you know, the other thing is that you also have to sort of balance people's expectations, because fans or gamers are going to want to play something that's kind of cinematic and follows the cinematic tropes of one last job and, you know, an ass-kicking team of ass-kicking ass-kickers who kick ass, and, you know, and the whole we're getting the gang back together again, you know, for one last heist kind of
son motif. Of a bitch, I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. And that's people kind of want that kind of stuff. I kind of want that kind of thing. I don't mean people like I'm better than that. I'm all about that crap. Give me the
Rick and Morty did a whole episode making fun of that.
I want Brynjolf to turn to me at some point or other and go, "We're in," or something. I mean, I want that, you know. You know.
Well, I think it would be cool to have less a focus on the thievery itself and more on like infiltration.
Yeah.
So like, hey, there's this really powerful and corrupt, house of nobility or whatever. And it's rumored that they've got some kind of artifact or something in their storage. Well, we need to get in tight with them. You're on top of that. How are we going to do it?
Right.
And then, maybe you make friends with a guard and you take him out for a drink and he's like, oh yeah, sometimes they let me lock up the artifact and it's really cool. And you're like, oh yeah, well, what's the room? I mean, how much security must that? I mean, that must be a lot of work.
How many paces is it to the front door?
yeah. I mean, just oh look, it's LJ. Hi, LJ.
Yeah, and it's well, I mean, but then again, because I'm constantly thinking about lore in terms of what's this going to do for the video game. It's really hard to convince a player that you need to go out and take this guy out and get him drunk and then listen to him. The players, generally speaking, just want to go and sneak around and stab some shit. And
yeah.
That's like a big the Heist movie always has. The scene where you have to go out and get into some kind of ridiculous shit to get information out of somebody. Have we all seen Sneakers by any chance? No? All right.
I've seen Sneaky Pete. Does that count?
No, we don't. But I mean, in terms of heist movies, there's always the collecting information phase, and then there's the we need to get the equipment phase, and then etc.
What's the one show, Leverage?
Yeah.
That's like... It's like that every episode.
Right, yeah. And, I mean, people kind of expect that, but at the same time, there's a difference between what you expect to have to do and then how you expect to have to do it. So so a player might say, well, I don't buy this plot line without some phase of the quest where I'm getting information or something, or stealing, I need a particular thing or something. And then at that point, it becomes up to the game designer to figure out a way to do that, and while still engaging players who may not necessarily give a rat's ass about that. And
which I mean, an answer to that could be to adopt sort of how Zenimax has been doing stuff with ESO.
Right.
If you do the Thieves Guild, the daily quests, they stick you in a delve sort of situation, and there doesn't necessarily have to be any combat. You can choose to do it that way and you forsake some bonuses, but the goal is to, sneak around, steal what you need, and then get out before, some big player shows up, and then they can spot you, and, it's all time based. And so it's more like, it's more like a puzzle than anything. And I mean, there are plenty of players who enjoy puzzles. But if people want to do the stabby killy, then they can do that. It's just not going to be optimal for them. So I mean, for Elder Scrolls 6, they could do a fighters guild, make that stabby killy, or Dark Brother. I mean, we have those, and I think part of the point of the guilds in the first place is to offer different modes of gameplay and different kind of aspects of what the game can do. Right?
I would agree with you, except for Skyrim, where I definitely got the impression that the objective of every guild quest was to complete the guild quest. It seems much more about
the one major praise I have for Skyrim's quest, and I think I said this last time, is that the storylines themselves were very engaging, and I thought they were well written. They were just too short. It's 5 quests and suddenly you're the head of this guild. Give us a little more longevity there. I want to feel like I achieved something, not that I strolled in and sat on the throne and everyone was like, "Oh, okay."
The other way that I would, if from a writing perspective, you can also solve the engagement problem with the information gathering phase. If you just embrace the ridiculousness of the concept of a giant heist.
Yeah.
If you find out the solution is, I'm going to need 50 barrels of pickled herring.
Yeah. See, and I really wish that it were it were more possible in a video game format to have more dynamic interactions like that, where things that you don't necessarily have to predict to happen, it's just that the way the world is. So like that example of, you know, making friends with a guard, the devs don't need to know who that guard is.
Oh, yeah, right.
And you know, one guard can give you a couple different ins, and a different guard could give you a couple other different ins and information.
Well,
And-
I mean, sure, those things are possible. What you mean is you wish it was within a reasonably sized budget to be able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, because we're never going to have a game that really emulates interpersonal relationship in any, you know, fleshed out way, other than dating sims. Chris, chill out.
Well, no. Let's see what they do with AI in the next 20 years.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm cautiously optimistic about.
Right.
Is that machine learning will, you know, give some kind of, you know, brain power to the world itself, and we can have more dynamic and unpredictable actions that we can take that have more of a lifelike impact on the world. Because I mean, when like Fable came out, when I've played Facade.
Bakker's mentioning Facade. Yeah, that's a very good example of a game being engineered to cope with almost anything. Yeah.
In that game, if when they open the door you say the word melons, they will close the door and game is over. I've spent a lot of time on that game.
Yeah.
Well, first they stare at you for a second like you're crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, it sounds like the big issue with kind of making the Thieves Guild quests properly, really, really engaging is just making them a lot more dynamic. Don't make getting caught a failure state. Put on the Benny Hill theme.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just Jack Sparrow your way out of it, swinging from a chandelier and onto the drapes. And
yeah, and
up on a dude's head.
If there's some way of just getting more than just the heist kind of things. One of the things that again came up in ESO is that that the Thieves Guild there was kind of geared towards dealing with protection and that side of it, in case of you respect us or we will sink your business.
Right.
Sort of thing as well. So
protection rackets make a lot of sense from a criminal standpoint because it takes way less energy to not rob somebody than it does to rob somebody.
Yeah.
And if you can get paid to not do something, that's a good gig.
I would be interested in seeing if, and I wish they had figured out a way to do this in the Elder Scrolls V with the Civil War quest, having government bodies come to the Thieves Guild for flat out, look, we don't have anybody this good.
Yeah.
The High Elves have some shit locked up in a really, really fancy box.
Yeah.
We would like you to go get it for us.
Yeah. That's actually a good point. I would have liked to have seen more interconnectivity between the guilds. I mean, we kind of had that in Morrowind, where if you complete the Thieves Guild, you cannot complete the Fighters Guild.
Right. Because you're stealing from the Fighters Guild at one point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you have to kill someone in the Fighters Guild, and she's like a major player in the Fighters Guild. But if they had managed to breaking into the Thalmor embassy, there should have been an option to just either be part of the Thieves Guild and make it easier, go to the Thieves Guild and hand over a painful amount of money and make it easier, or hand over a ridiculous amount of money and wait 3 days.
Yeah, and there's also the option of if Maven gets made Jarl of Riften, then you've already got that connection straight in there. You've got a whole bunch of Radiant quests sitting and waiting for you to do things to influence the Civil War. If you've got the Jarl of Riften sitting there being in control of what's basically a unit of infiltrators, it can potentially be saboteurs as well.
And it would have been cool if when Maven became Jarl, if the city guards were just replaced with the Thieves Guild members. Just all of the
but like still in guard outfits, but they're all they're all yeah. There you go. Yeah,
They just have unique names now.
Yeah,
you can get away with basically anything.
Or how about this? This would be cool. A Thieves Guild that's actually comprised of like legionnaires and guards, because they know the system, and so they like have these secret meetings in the back of one of the barracks where they talk about all the things they're going to extort and steal and stuff.
And as the game progresses, that guild gets larger and larger until it's like the Ku Klux Klan, now just 80% FBI agents.
Anyway,
they're all reporting on each other because they're all undercover, and the guy, whoever has to process the reports, is just like, I don't fucking know what I'm doing anymore.
Vaguely related.
Could y'all have thrown out a handshake or something?
If you've ever seen the movie Imperium with Daniel Radcliffe, that's a fucking excellent movie.
Yes, it is.
Anyway, it's at the same kind of thing. He's like an undercover FBI agent trying to infiltrate like white nationalists and
Cool.
It's really good.
Yeah.
So this is sort of why all these reasons are one of the reasons why the Thieves Guild in Skyrim makes a lot of sense, in the respect that it is structured a lot like an actual criminal organization. It's being, fronted by, or it's being backed up by an incredibly rich, corrupt business owner. They've got reasons to go out and do things for the Blackbriars that are Thieves Guild related, and that means they're getting paid, and it's, Riften is basically this horrible, wretched hive of scum and villainy, and things are working out really well, and, Empire was nice and, soft until the Stormcloaks came along. But then when you get towards the end of the Skyrim Thieves Guild quest, it takes a turn. And now all of a sudden you realize that you're not in a Thieves Guild quest. You're actually in a Daedric Prince quest.
Yeah.
This whole time.
Yeah, I do like that scale of it, where it goes from, okay, local hometown, kind of hired thugs, into, oh, hey, we are the secret warriors of a Daedric Prince of Night. And like it really steps itself up there,
and then suddenly you're in an Indiana Jones movie. Oh God, that is difficult to say.
Yeah.
That could be cool too. Like take the Antiquities Guild.
The Antiquities Guild, yeah.
Or antiquarians, and add that into Test 6, so there's like a dozen different really hard dungeons you can go in.
Well, and you're kind of almost skirting the idea of a Thieves Guild there anyway, because what is Indiana Jones but a glorified thief from people who are dead?
I think as far as the United States government is concerned, the difference between archaeology and grave robbing is like 50 years.
It's it depends on what happens to the object afterwards. Does it go into somebody's private collection, or does it go in a museum?
Yeah.
If it goes into a private collection, it's thieving. If it goes into a museum, it's archaeology.
Also, that's why he was so concerned about it belongs in a museum in The Last Crusade. He was just concerned about job security.
Exactly. He doesn't want to be a thief.
Yeah.
Thieves steal and put it in their own pockets.
Yeah.
So, should we talk about maybe artifacts associated with the thieves?
I was going to say, Nocturnal. We still need to talk about a bit more. The kind of just what just the Nightingales as an organization. I don't really quite get what they stand for in a way, because they
really cool.
Basically you stand up on really tall buildings during the rain and glower. That's what you do.
Well,
isn't the whole point of them to protect the portal to the Twilight Sepulchre? Sepulchre.
Which ain't much of a job. You were a thief, but now you're just standing guard.
You're a glorified guard.
Also, Nocturnal has quite the history of having stuff stolen from her. I get the feeling that the Nightingales just might be Nocturnal's attempt to turn poachers into gamekeepers, so to speak.
Well, right.
I mean, and I think a lot of that has to do with like the duality of princes. Like, I don't know how many people share this view, but I think every prince has an equal and opposite duality within themselves.
Sure.
So like Nocturnal is the patron saint of thieves and also of the thieved, because that's all in her purview. So of course she gets shit stolen from her all the time. That's her job.
Yeah.
She is there to provide I guess a pathway for things to get stolen, whether it's her things getting stolen or things getting stolen on her behalf.
But when stuff gets stolen from her, all of a sudden it's a fucking problem, and she has to turn into the king.
Yeah,
Which follows with that's the way the antimorph works. The thief becomes the king, and so
and when you even if you're a thief and your crap gets stolen, you're still going to be pissed.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I think
you steal a mob boss's car and kill his dog, and he is going to visit vengeance upon you.
I mean, I think from Nocturnal's standpoint, I mean, she has a role to play. She by being upset that the skeleton key has been stolen, she has now created a pathway for more theft to occur by stealing it back.
Right.
And it's just constant changing of hands.
It's movement.
Which makes sense as, you know, if we think of Daedra princes as, you know, agents of change and you know, constant chaos. Well, that's pretty chaotic. Like, oh, I'm gonna have this thing and you can't get it. Oh, you got it. Oh no. Oh, someone else go steal it quick. You know, just a constant shifting of you know, all of that. The caffeine's starting to get to me. Can you tell?
And that's not Nocturnal. That's not just Nocturnal either. Now I think about it, that's a whole heap of princes.
Oh yeah. I mean, like a point I usually make for the duality thing, getting you know, a slight tangent here. Like Molag Bal, he is simultaneously the quintessential slaver and the quintessential slave because of the fact that he is locked into his role.
Yep.
He has no choice but to enslave people, and so in that way, he is a slave himself.
And he's never going to stop enslaving people because he can't.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, that's people talk about, you know, the princes like they are as human as us when it's really not that simple. No. I don't think it's. They are stuck in a role. They're stuck in an attitude. They're stuck in, you know, that they have their purpose, and that's the path they take. And so, like for Molag Bal, you know, any opportunity he has to dominate someone in whatever way that might be, he'll take it, unless by not dominating someone, he can dominate more later.
Right.
Like, so
what is my purpose? You pass butter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's essentially all the princes, but at a more hypothetical and I guess rhetorical level.
What is my purpose? You enable theft.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that would be Nocturnal, you know. Yeah, helicopter daddy ball. Yeah. So
speaking of the Nightingales, and speaking of Nightingales being agents of change, when I was doing my research for this cast, I noticed that I think it was Oblivion, maybe it was Skyrim, in one of the two games, there in a book it's mentioned that Jagger Tharn hired a Nightingale to steal the Staff of Chaos. He didn't do it himself.
Oh,
well, which I think it's questioned whether because the person's title was the Nightingale.
Yeah.
And so it's like their name. They weren't a Nightingale, they were the Nightingale.
You think that might have been like early lore or something? Or
maybe, I mean, that might be where it got taken from.
Yeah.
But yeah, poor attempt at that time.
If I remember correctly, in Arena, it was Jagger Tharn disguised himself as a bard named the Nightingale.
Yeah, which is why there's a question of whether it was Jagger Tharn himself who did the stealing.
But there is some evidence to support the idea that Queen Baranzaya did a little bit. I think it was Queen Baranzaya did a little bit of historical revisionism, so that it was only Jagger Tharn that screwed her over, not two people, because somehow that's better.
Yeah, it's
Could
it's
be.
a, it's
Yeah.
it's a little unclear, but yeah, and although in fairness, whenever I picked that up, I always read the Nightingale and Jagathan as the same person, until the Elder Scrolls V.
Which I just had a thought, not to interrupt you there, James, but I mean to kind of try and merge old lore with current lore. What if Jagatharn was a Nightingale and stealing the throne was the highest form of theft he could accomplish?
That they would have been shouting from the rooftops, I think, as the Nightingales, or at least in the book. Well, not literally, but you
because the Nightingales are a secret society.
Yeah, but in the book that talks about that that introduces the Nightingales and is written by the Nightingales, they're quite keen to distance themselves from Tharn.
And if that had been the case, it would have been the story of Jagatharn, Volume 1 of 300.
Yeah, they would have been very, very keen to kind of play up his role if he was doing things.
Unless I guess he did it he did it to
went rogue.
Like contrary to his actual job. Like he thought, oh, I'm gonna do this crazy heist with all the skills I've gathered, and Nocturnal's gonna be so happy with me, it's gonna be so great. And then the Nightingales are like, how about we don't? Like, we have this other job we're doing. Why are you fucking around over here with the Ruby Throne? Like, stop. So, I mean...
And if you think about it, since the Nightingales belong to Nocturnal, and yet the Ruby Throne and the Emperor is essentially Akatosh's property... Nocturnal could be justifiably pissed that one of her Nightingales was stolen by Akatosh.
Yeah. Hey, you know that car? It belongs to John Wick. Oh. I mean, is there anything you think the Thieves Guild and Nocturnal would never steal? I mean, other than like beggars and stuff. I mean, is there anything that would be a little too dangerous or highfalutin?
My first instinct was to suggest another Daedric prince's entire plane, but ESO proved that wrong.
Yeah.
Actual Elder Scrolls are not out of the question, because you literally do that.
One of the moons?
Well,
if they could do that, they totally would. No.
Yeah, didn't Rajan already do that?
Razumdar, I think, didn't he? Is that what I'm thinking of?
Rajin? No. Razumdar is an NPC.
That's right. I'm
thinking. Rajin.
Yeah, Rajin. Yeah, was the famous Khajiit thief god.
He stole Secunda or something.
I think he did.
he stole a lot, but he's not associated with the Thieves Guild, as far as I'm aware.
I do know the one thing that the Nightingales would absolutely not steal: Numidium.
Oh yeah.
They're staying.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think Nocturnal would be like, put that away, leave it there, walk away.
That shit is too hot.
Yeah.
Please tell me you didn't try to turn it on.
Yeah.
The big red button. Yeah. Don't press it.
Although,
I'm just picturing. I'm just picturing the Nightingales showing up in Evergloam with a deactivated Numidium and Nocturnal just freaking out.
They're all like 3 or 4 of them are sitting around the head, like poking at it with a stick. The files are in the computer,
I'm picturing them more like a cat that's like brought a dead animal to its owner.
Yeah.
And Nocturnal is just like, number 1, how? Number 2, why? And number 3, oh my god, put it back.
So, let's see.
Cowl of Nocturnal? Or the Gray Cowl?
And the Gray Cowl, yes.
Yeah, and Skeleton Key?
But
what else?
Are there any major
artifacts?
Arrow
of extraction or extrication or something, or what was it called?
I'm kind of curious about why the Gray Cowl was even a thing, because it's a thing just designed to create and perpetuate a legend, basically. It basically turns someone into a figure to represent. Is it explicitly representative of Nocturnal who's enslaved to her, or?
Identity theft is not a joke, Jim. Millions of families suffer every year.
If you were someone you love and suffered from identity theft,
you may be entitled to financial compensation. Well, it's the way I understand it. The Gray Cowl of Nocturnal was cursed because it was stolen. It wasn't originally designed to create the Gray Fox persona, erasing someone from history.
Yeah.
It was designed to pop this on, you're the Gray Fox. Take it off, you're not.
Yeah.
And people will believe you. It just has the way I kind of understood it is it basically just has an all-powerful gullibility field.
It moves you from what is it? What is it called in the construction kit? It's a not a guild. What's wrong with me?
Faction?
Factions, that's right. It moves you from one faction to another. That's what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And
then the world's AI responds accordingly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that if I recall that the story of the Gray Cowl was that it was stolen by someone who used like a girl as a decoy, sent the girl in, and Nocturnal was like, "What are you doing here?" And then the guy snuck in from the back while the girl got, blown up or whatever. And I like to think that girl is actually the form that Nocturnal takes, and that Nocturnal actually isn't the woman but the ravens. And that the ravens are controlling the body of the girl who stole the Gray Cowl, and that's who we see.
That's dark. I like it. It's like
I wanted to write something about that at one point, and I never got around to it.
It's like the opposite of two trench coats or two kids in a trench coat. It's
because in every depiction of Nocturnal, there's always three ravens, and a couple of them are on her arms, and one's flying around or whatever. I think those are Nocturnal, but the bitter cup is something that
that's right,
that we have to steal. Because I'm looking at stuff from Morrowind right now, because I played that a long time ago, and so it's been a minute.
I'm gonna start my OpenMW run at some point after my life slows down.
I think the Bitter Cup is really the only actual artifact to deal with in
so.
Morrowind. Something about there's a locket. No, Jim Stacy wants you to fight corruption in Vivec. Got to rob the Vivec library.
The Thieves Guild wants to fight corruption. There's something wrong there.
It's not their corruption, though. They're fighting corruption that comes from other people.
Yeah, I mean that's more
standard, man.
Yeah, more of that Robin Hood kind of feel.
Yeah.
Give a girl a stolen ring. Steal 4 history books in Caldera and donate them in Aldrune. There's a lot of, it's not so much theft, but redistribution of wealth.
Which jives with the understanding of the Nocturnal we've developed.
Yep. Yeah, it's helping the flow of stuff. It's a form of entropy, actually, when I think about it.
Which makes sense that Nocturnal is, representative of shadow.
Yeah. And Captain has kind of beaten me to it. They'll kind of gasp they're communists. But yeah.
Commies.
It is our theft. For Mother Russia.
This is
who the hell is Nocturnal in anticipation of?
What's that?
What?
IFW is telling us that Nocturnal is the 4th anticipation and is symbolized by Dagoth-Ur.
That's Vermina.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
I think I asked Kirkbride about this, and he said he corrected me to say it was Vermina.
Oh, okay.
I thought it was Nocturnal too.
Yeah.
Nocturnal is the 5th anticipation. She's the anticipation of all of the Dwemer that instantly vanished.
No, she's got to be in the anticipation of Dagoth because being the Urdrar is just too much of a giveaway.
I'm just pulling that out of my butt.
I was had to do with
Nocturnal's the
the
fourth good Daedra. Oh, the fourth good Daedra.
The
Heresy.
The blight dreams.
Yeah, I can see Nocturnal as the fourth good Daedra more easily than I can. Well, more easily than I can as an anticipation, which is stupid because they're the same thing.
Yeah,
but...
I mean, I've heard it both ways, and I like both ways for different reasons.
Yeah,
but it's how to reconcile that, you know.
And pairing Nocturnal with Dayoth kind of works when we consider the power of the skeleton key and the crap Dagoth got up to.
How do you mean?
Stealing godhood, essentially.
Okay. Which, I mean, okay. I wonder if MG changed his mind.
Now that I think about it, I wonder if you could. I wonder if you could work on the Heart of Lorcan using Mehrunes Razor and the Skeleton Key.
Oh, that'd be cool.
That would have been terrifying.
Ooh. Yeah, that's got one head and left hand part.
I don't want to think about the Mehrunes Razor being used on the Heart of Lorcan. That's not
in conjunction with the Skeleton Key.
Oh,
I kind of want to think about that.
Yeah.
It's got really troubling ideas of like what would that do to the fabric of reality, you know? I mean,
whatever you wanted. And quite possibly
using both, unlocking true potential and carving away at reality into better shape.
Well, okay, now hold on.
Would that be basically the equivalent of like hitting the console command key on the Godhead?
No, it would be the thing. The Mehrunes Razor isn't necessarily used to unlock true potential. That's one way you can use it.
That's the skeleton key.
Yeah.
Okay, it's also the skeleton key. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
But the razor is used to trim away unwanted bits.
Yeah.
But
so
you define for yourself what that unwanted parts are. So
the Khajiit know that
potential, and the razor to flay away the unwanted bits.
Yeah, and the Khajiit already have the unwanted bits because they have Locage and the Moonbeast as distinct things.
Yeah.
So the Khajiit will want to cut the Moonbeast out of Locage.
Possibly. Oh, well. There's a thought. Perhaps
Ziegler, are you listening to this? Write it, please.
Now I'm wondering if, due to the hilariously fluid nature of time when it's necessary in this universe, if Mehrunes Razor was used to dissect Lorcan.
Well, that's the like what you're pointing out is correct. If due to the way that time and space are interrelated in this game, you'd never know.
We've gotten so off track from the Thieves Guild.
Yeah, we
just
really
like
have.
the Thieves Guild quests usually do.
Yeah.
I mean that's a good point. That is a good point.
And so this is thematically for us going anywhere.
Yeah.
It's I can tell when I'm stumbled upon the precipice of a gigantic chasm of lore, and tuning up Lorcan's heart is definitely giving me those vibes right now.
I'm picturing Kagranak like working on the heart with his tools, and then somebody strolling in with Mehrunes Razor and the skeleton key and being like, "This is how it's really done."
Is caning supposed to be a stand-in for Mehrunes Razor?
Oh.
Which and then
a bootleg Mehrunes Razor.
Okay, so think about this. Okay, so if keying is a stand-in for Mehrunes Razor, is Sunder a stand-in for not the Scourge, the other one?
Well, keep in mind what these things are used
Malakath's
for.
hammer.
Sunder is used to beat the Doom Drum.
Yes.
Drum.
To create a tone of any kind. And then keening is the tuning fork. You remember what it looks like?
Mm-hmm.
So it's then used to tune the pitch.
They use a certain phrase in discussing keening, and it has to do with like carving or cutting or something like that. That's how it's. Let me see if I can find it.
Captain had a wonderful idea a little bit ago. Shape the big heart into a small heart, unlock your rib cage, and install a new heart.
Ooh.
Become the greatest Briar heart.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or
Kind of partially the plot of Tatterdemalion in a way.
Or just laconic Iron Man. But
Or become Lorcan.
yeah.
Or assemble Talos too.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, now I'm having terrible Victor Frankenstein in the Elder Scrolls universe ideas.
Yeah, we're just turning into references here to try and explain various ways of thinking rather than actually going too far.
Okay, the word is flay. Keening was created to flay and focus the power of the hammer, or that the hammer sundered.
Yeah.
Made the sound of the shadow of the moons. Shadow.
The shadow of the moons.
That doesn't have anything to do with Mare's Day.
Lorcage Moonbeast. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I'm wondering if it's not
the ethos
necessarily
knife, which ethos. I should know this because this is something we talk about all the time in education. It's character in Greek.
Yes.
So the character knife.
Again, you change your Nimic with the razor. You change your character.
What was the ethos knife supposed to be?
That's keening.
Because it's what Vivec stabbed Cityface with. The short blade of proper commerce.
Yes.
And Cityface is
RKIA Altadune I.
That is Baron's razor. or a reproduction of it.
Yeah.
It's
how appropriate they stab Cityface and on Mehrunes Dagon with it. Or well, Nuhada. Is it Nuhada? No. It's oh fuck, what's his name?
Not Funny Hen.
Cityface.
Cityface is Harnote, isn't it?
Harnote, that's it. Yeah. Harnote, who I think is Dagon, and then he's taken by the Grabbers, the Magnagi.
Yeah.
And they infuse him with hope using the razor.
Yeah.
Is that a connection between Vivec and the Magnagi? Because both are using a form of a razor on
the only issue with all this is that we have no Daedric equivalent of Wraithguard. Yeah. I mean, we have the Wraith. Well, we have the
Spellbreaker.
The Ebony Mail.
The Wraith Mail is possibly what you're thinking, because that's if you read the 5 songs of Wolfhearth.
Yeah, and
you have the 3 artifacts right at the end in different forms, and the Wraith Mail is the equivalent to Wraithguard.
That's a common misconception, because the Wraith Mail was the chain coif worn by Elandro Sul.
Yes.
So it is distinctly separate from Wraithguard, but people like to conflate the two, because when at the red moment he got blasted by Tribunal Gun, to use Kirkbright's words, and his soul was blasted into the individual rings, which the Urshi Laku now pass around as heirlooms, whereas earrings and stuff, and that's why Elandro Sul's soul speaks to them, and that's why they're the head of the distant priest.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I hate to dwell on one thing, but I'm having a really hard time finding where the connection is between the ethos knife and keening.
I'm looking at the Kagrenax Tools lore page.
Yeah.
It says the short blade keening, also referred to as the ethos knife.
Right, and its references are the 36 Lessons of Vivec, where it mentions the ethos knife, but not keening. Yeah. And the 5 songs of King Wolfhearth, which mentions keening at the very end. A dagger made of the sound of the shadow of the moons. But that's not related to the ethos knife.
Okay.
I mean, no offense, but I think like somebody at the UASP made a spurious connection.
Fair enough.
I still think it's really cool, and I'm glad we went down this tangent. But
Yeah, I mean, it has nothing to do with the Thieves Guild. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah.
Oh no, we're stealing a chunk of the time of the Thieves Guild cast to talk about other things.
It fits in the purview. Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to close that out, you probably wouldn't need an analog for Wraithguard because keening is, in this crackpot theory, an imperfect copy.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal cosmic power in
Itty-bitty little space.
itty-bitty dwarven engineering. The Mehrunes Razor is a lot safer. It's like handling,
Ironically.
it's like handling a properly cased like fuel rod for a reactor versus just painting everything you have with radium paint and waiting for the.
You know, I mean, it'll outright kill you with one pinprick, but you know. But it's safer, yes.
Now I'm wondering what would happen if you used Mehrunes Razor on a Daedric prince.
You could create a new Daedric prince.
Anyways.
Anyway. Thieves Guild.
Anyway.
Thieves Guild.
Yeah.
The Godhead shows up and tells you off and takes it away.
I was going to say we have an email that we should probably get to if we're in the process of sort of wrapping up or whatever. Which we probably should be.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a whole lot more to talk about for the Thieves Guild.
I can't think of anything else.
Yeah.
There is some evidence to indicate. Well, the question I have that I've been thinking about is, where is the Gray Cowl of Nocturnal in Skyrim's time? There's some evidence, if you look at the dialogue, to indicate that it might.
Well, now it's Sheogorath's artifact.
Is it?
It's your artifact, and you become Sheogorath. It's Sheogorath's artifact.
Oh yeah.
So
but,
I mean,
but there's some
probably
evidence.
not, but
But that's one way of explaining it.
Yeah,
the character I think just hangs around in the cistern in Skyrim. Rune has been like he is discovered as like a 5-year-old or something, surviving a shipwreck with zero memory of his past, and has been hired. And every septum he makes in the Thieves Guild goes to hiring detectives to try to find his parents.
Oh yeah.
And I think the phrase used by one of the detectives that sent him a letter was, "It's as if they've been erased from history."
Yeah, and exactly, and it's like a
And
strong
Rune categorically
indication
does
that
not
there's
have
something
any
happening there.
quests.
Yeah.
Rune does not have any quests associated with him.
Mm-hmm.
So
I remember that.
I'm betting that was cut from development.
Mm-hmm.
That he was supposed to be the start to the find the Gray Cowl at the bottom of the ocean quest chain.
Yeah, which fits because it's part of the Thieves Guild, so it would have been you. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It would have, and actually, what happens if you're killed with the cowl on and buried with it on? Are you?
No one remembers where you're buried.
Yeah, nobody remembers where the cowl is either. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really very good. I'm actually glad you brought that up because that's something from Skyrim that I discovered on my first playthrough and then immediately forgot. So
it just kind of fades into the background.
Mm-hmm. Well, it does, like you said, it does look like something that's going to lead somewhere, and then it just doesn't.
I mean, I wonder if Nocturnal just reclaimed it after a while. Just
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's buried 6 feet under, and Cyrodiil somewhere.
If there's any modders out there, please finish off that, because that cowl quest for Rune sounds like a fantastic thing.
Train Wiz, I bet you he can do it.
Oh, bingo!
T-Dubs is busy. He's got his own game.
Bingo! Say the T word.
But okay, so letter, James.
Yep, absolutely. We have an email that we should have discussed a while back, but from Tonight. Greetings. I'm a long-time viewer of your YouTube channel and big fan of discussions and theories you've laid out. I was wondering if in the next cast on Vivec, this goes to show how far back we got the email.
Oh, I was about to say there's going to be another one, I'm sure. So.
Oh yeah. But this was, I think, when we were just releasing them to YouTube several weeks after, so it didn't really work. So sorry for not catching that in the right order tonight, but the way these channels are working is different. You might touch on whether there are any in-universe usage of gender-neutral or feminine pronouns attributed to Vivec. Is this something that your lower communities have taken on outside of the games, or is there other canon resources that use such pronouns and terms, or potentially whether you consider the lack of such terminology simply a sign of the times when the games were developed? I'd also like to add that the Servants of the Tribunal Guild in ESO has an extensive fan interpretation on almost taking the role of a patron to queer characters. This has got me thinking about how in the Elder Scrolls Online, now including more openly gay couplings and previously discussing the sexual pervasiveness and less judgmental tendencies towards promiscuity, might Vivec serve role in affirming a Crowley thelemic worldview of "do as thou wilt shall be the whole of the law" mentality amongst the Dunmer? Sorry, this got longer than intended.
Well, then it matches the cast.
If it had been shorter, it probably.
So let's break it down. I think the first question was, are there any examples of gender-neutral pronouns in the Elder Scrolls universe? Not yet.
No.
I think the closest we do come is Summon 37, where Vivec starts as he and is then she by the end.
Yeah, but it's still a binary pronoun, so
there's a flip in the text.
I've always said that I'm a really big fan of the idea of using gender-neutral pronouns for Vivec because it involves creating what in the Elder Scrolls universe would be a new language, which I think is fantastic for Vivec. I think it's something that you would really appreciate. But and also because Vivec is, according to her own description, unique in all the world. The idea of having a unique gender-neutral pronoun to describe her is, again, what I think is appropriate. I think there was something in there about, do I think that the ESO's approach to non-binary or gay or queer or whatever relationships pandering to an audience? I don't think so.
No, they do a really good job of they just kind of slip it in. Like they don't no fanfare,
There's no fanfare.
Just my wife. And it's just
or my husband or whatever, and it's if they were pandering, then they would really beat that into your when companies pander, they're real bad at it, so you could smell it, so I think if they were going to pander to the to the LGBTQ community, they'd do it a lot more blatantly than they are. I think they put it in because the writing. The lore and writing people have just sort of decided that this was an appropriate thing to do in the Elder Scrolls universe, and to help differentiate it from the real world, and also because there was some historical evidence of this in previous games, like in Skyrim, for example, where you can have a gay marriage. And nobody makes a big deal out of it. And
remember when that was like a controversial thing for like Mass Effect?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Everyone was like, you can be gay. Ah!
Yeah, and that was like that was a huge deal. Whereas in Skyrim, they don't mention that at all. Like it wasn't in the marketing at all. It doesn't matter.
And there is as far as I know, a single example of a trans character in Somerset. There's a character who is like someone's son, and they go and they like run off. And they join the house. What's it called? Like the House of Revelries or something like that.
Somerset
players. Yeah, something like that. So they have a mask, and they go by Alchemy, who is a woman. And I remember when I played that, like it didn't even occur to me that this character is a trans character. Like it just didn't. It was so well done and so just. Natural,
like underplayed. Yeah,
I was like, "Oh shit, he's a sheep." Okay, all right. Oh, there's Felix.
It's Felix.
It's Felix.
Oh my god.
Yeah, we ended the stream 20 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Guys, I
wait,
thought we
what?
talked about this. Like, I'm working till 4.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. We're still going. We're still
We're
going.
still going.
Hold on. Is Felix in the hyperbolic time chamber?
Ooh. Yes, his background has changed completely.
It's just pure.
Yeah, all our backgrounds have changed completely because I recently moved. Andrew recently moved.
mhm.
Chris is either moving or has moved.
Yeah, hence the boxes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I guess you could
we
say
were just
those are the
answering a
4
letter,
corners of your
Felix,
house of troubles.
who is asking us specifically about I've had plenty of house troubles. Who's just asking us about non-binary relationships and LGBTQ stuff in various games. I think what have we covered and what have we missed?
We've
James?
gone through the terminology side of things. Do we think that the lack of the terminology is a sign of the times when the games was developed?
Yeah.
I'm pretty certain that I've seen something about MK saying that he wouldn't have used the term hermaphrodite.
Yeah, he did. He definitely has said that. That he didn't. He says he can't remember if at the time intersex was a thing or if he just didn't know about it, and he thinks it's way more likely that he just didn't know about it.
Yeah, because there is a comment he made at some point talking about the creation of Vivec, where he said, I really just wanted a hermaphroditic badass on the Xbox.
Yeah, yeah. That kids were gonna be playing this game that has like this intersex character who's a fucking god, and he really wanted to put that out there. In that sort of like kind of, what I would charitably call a punk rock kind of feeling to to Kirkbride's lore, where he just wants to do things that people don't expect or make people uncomfortable.
Most of the development from Morrowind was like what, 2001, 2002.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
I mean, that's
literally 2 decades ago.
Yeah.
That doesn't strike me as the most PC time period.
Yeah.
I mean, I was like 11 at the time, but
I almost want to make a kind of a side tangent on the email as well and talk about because it feels like it's kind of edging towards the what pronouns does Vivec use? Because whenever I start using gender neutral pronouns to refer to Vivec, there's always but Vivec always calls himself a he.
Yeah. So it's
if you look on the YouTube comments on our Vivec ones, there's a couple. I jump into those and I explain, well, it's not necessarily about what Vivec wants because Vivec isn't a real person with real opinions.
Thank you.
Pretty much.
And so, for the people who are part of our community who don't use gender binary, like we want them to feel like they belong and like they're acknowledged and we want to show that we're open to that that situation. Just, I mean, who are we to judge? Not that any of us would judge, but I mean, by I don't want to say pushing, but by, I guess, asserting gender neutral pronouns for a character who is in textual gender, at least gender fluid.
Yes.
I mean, I think we're doing more of a service than a disservice to the character.
What it comes to, the way I've explained it to people is that it takes so little effort compared to the amount of like positive reception that I've gotten. From people sending me notes and like emails and stuff thanking me for doing it. They're so overwhelmingly grateful that I'm like the amount of work that it takes for me to force myself to use, not force, but to bend myself into shape to use gender neutral pronouns is well worth it. Well worth it. Oh, yeah. So that's why I'm like I have absolutely no like I enjoy at this point making the effort. Because selfishly, I think it makes me feel like I'm doing good things for people.
I mean, and for more of a practical.
Okay, they're woke, Skull.
Yeah,
like,
I'm
relax.
so woke, you guys. Oh my god, I am virtue signaling so fucking loud right now.
From a more practical standpoint, I find it's useful practice.
Yeah,
because being a cisgendered white man myself with shit tons of privilege.
Yeah.
I do have students who are trans or gender neutral or whatever, and so by engaging with the concept of gender neutral language with a fictional character, it better prepares me mentally to handle my students who they prefer to go by this name instead of this other name. They prefer these pronouns. I go, okay, cool, I've got it because I'm already primed for that.
The only thing that throws me is when they ask me to use a gender neutral pronoun system that I'm not familiar with.
Oh yeah.
That
yeah.
Well,
I did have
okay, now I need to learn a bit.
Yeah. I was subbing in an art class once at a high school, and the student, their name on the attendance was it was a female name, and they corrected me when I called their name to check that they were here, and they preferred a female name. And so once classes started, everything, I said, hey, what pronouns do you prefer? And they said she her. And so and then she said, no teacher's ever asked me that before.
Right. Yeah.
And she thanked me. I said, absolutely, or no, was it other way around? Preferred he, him, whatever it was. The fact that I had asked, they were appreciative, and so that in and of itself is not that I think I need any repayment, but
it's a minuscule amount of effort to make other people's lives better.
Absolutely.
Comfortable. And, it makes people comfortable. Yeah.
And as a teacher, making people comfortable in my classroom is very important to me.
Right,
because
obviously.
the more comfortable you are, the more relaxed you are, the better you're going to learn. Like that's just part of my philosophy. So
what's this liberal teacher art school bullshit? This is why kids are doing bad in school, because you're creating a positive learning environment.
Now, what we need to do is we need to keep this, but also bring back corporal punishment.
Right.
Fair and balanced.
Give and take, man. Give and take.
Wallows in seething tolerance.
The chat is brilliant at this point.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Elder Scrolls.
Just sort of do I think that? I think it's a very good question. That is ESO pandering to people, and the reason why I think it's a good question is because you have to be really wary of that. There is a tendency for private companies to politicize and I would say monetize wokeness,
we're headed into Pride Month. You're going to see.
A good example is during Pride Month when companies change their logos on Facebook or whatever to
suddenly everybody's got a rainbow. Yeah.
Unless there's Twitter accounts from Saudi Arabia.
For 1 month out of the year.
It rings a little hollow. I mean, I appreciate the gesture.
True. Rainbow capitalism, that's the term. Thank you.
But is that rainbow capitalism? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Bethesda has been a little guilty of this. I've seen Bethesda kind of but I mean, they do it just like a lot of companies do. Black History Month, suddenly every company's talking about POC history and which they never mention any other time during the year. And
it is a good thing, but it's done for the wrong reasons.
Right.
It's not hurting any cause that doesn't deserve to be hurt. Mm-hmm. But it's not helping as effectively as it could.
And and that's really largely
a demographic to be profited off of.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the fact that they are recognized as a profitable demographic is something. But I think that, when I say that, I feel like I'm arguing for the devil.
Yeah. It's at least you're seen as a demographic to be profited off of, instead of one to be expunged. Which Right. Which saying at least you were hit by a compact car instead of a bus.
I do like when Bethesda came out and said, "Yeah, fuck Nazis." His Wolfenstein, I'm all for that, and people turned it into a political thing. It's like, really? This has been a thing since the 1940s.
Has American history education really gotten that bad?
Oh
yes.
It
100% has. That is not an exaggeration. It has gotten very bad. Yeah.
Speaking as someone endorsed in history, there's a lot of. I mean, when I worked at a copy shop, someone brought me. I mean, it was they were like a teacher at like a private school or something. They brought me this history book, but it was like American history in Bible terms, or whatever, like in biblical terms. And so it, like, I flipped through it, and it was like, oh yes, when God told the founding fathers to do this, I was like, what the fuck are you doing? This doesn't belong to kids. Are you kidding me?
Wow. Like, I thought our history of here was bad, but that's holy shit.
Yeah, like I thought about being like, oops, don't know where your shit went, but
oops, it went in the shredder, not the copier.
Yeah, I had bills to pay, and I was a little upset because I mean I have an endorsement in history, and I have taught history before, and that's a slap in the face to actual, intellectually honest,
my mother
relying on primary and secondary sources. Like, I mean, that's all we do, right? I mean,
so like, does that mean God told Thomas Jefferson to rape the child slave Sally Hemings like 50 times or whatever?
Oh, no, that was the devil. The devil did that.
Oh, okay, right, yeah.
Look,
no,
the point is that Thomas Jefferson's just as human as the rest of us, and
But I will say, Felix, we do talk about those kinds of things. So in the class I'm in right now, I've been in a long-term thing because of COVID. That the teacher I'm working with is remotely teaching, and I'm just in the room to be in the room.
I remember
a pretty sweet gig. But we had some time where I think we looked into some early American literature, and like the Constitution was part of it. And so this teacher brought up what's her name? Sally Heming, is that
so, yeah.
That her name? So we talked about her for a little bit, because the historical community has come to a pretty all around consensus that this is what happened. And I mean, if there's evidence that counters that, okay, well then we will correct that. But I liked that it was. No, it's not something that's being hidden. You know what I mean? And I mean, that's going to vary from school to school, teacher to teacher, district to district.
State to state.
Yeah.
I get it.
And
bringing since Felix is back on, and bringing it ever so slightly back to the Thieves Guild.
Why?
At the very beginning of the cast, I was really wishing Felix was here, because this is an area of like expertise that I don't have. Felix, do you know if there are any like religious or cult organizations associated with theft?
Yes and no.
This
So
is the
what
answer I was hoping for.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? You're never really going to encounter like a god or a goddess of theft, as it were, but there's always protective gods or spirits of, the spurned, the ostracized, the criminal, etc. I think I forget who it is, but like there's a Christian saint who is literally like the patron saint of criminals or something like that.
Yeah. In Mexican Catholicism.
That's like one of the newer things. So like that's a subject for another time, about all the narco saints in like Colombia and Mexico.
Well, I'm rewatching Breaking Bad right now, and there was I watched the episode the other day where Hank goes to like that Santa Fe office or whatever, like he splits his time, and one of the guys has a little bust of a dude on his desk, and he says, oh, hey, who's that? Oh, this is so-and-so. He's the patron saint of drug dealers or something like that. And so he's like, well, why you got that on your desk? Well, you got to know your enemy. And then he gives him one. And then it's this whole thing.
I don't think it's necessarily that specific, because it's in the line with like St. Nicholas being the patron saint of prostitutes and stuff as well as of children and so on, which is an interesting thing to mix up.
Yeah.
But
well, if A, then
anyway.
B.
Yeah.
Saint Nicholas. Anyway. Saint Nicholas is the patron saint of repentant thieves. Interesting.
Oh, okay.
Oh, repentant thieves. Okay. That
he is really good.
That's more European Catholicism.
Yeah.
It's like.
But anyway, we interrupted Felix mid-flow.
Yeah. Sorry, Felix. That's my bad.
So again, it's like there's no real Like you're never going to find a god or a cult really based around that stuff. But obviously, people have gods or deities that they turn to for those who are the lowest among them. So, for example, one of the reasons why Christianity is popular in parts of India and in certain communities, particularly the untouchable Dalit community, is because Christianity doesn't put limitations on class or caste or anything like that. It's no, God loves you. You are worthy of love and respect. So the Dalits are like, motherfucker, am I a Hindu, right? So that's causing and has historically caused some problems in India in the past. Sometimes you will find like obviously in like, for example, the Elder Scrolls patron gods of thieves and criminals, murderers and things like that, which is why we have Nocturnal as the matron of the Thieves Guild, basically. But in terms of a like real world analog, the closest thing that's coming to mind as far as like a god who protects sorry, not even a god that protects thieves, but it was like the Christian patron saint of like criminals, or I think it was Saint Nicholas who said of repentant criminals.
Yeah.
I don't know of any in Hinduism, because Hinduism, again, it's like, law and punishment. So you kind of...
Well, I mean, you've got a lot of gods to suss through. Also,
true, and like
33 million gods in Hinduism?
I think it was only 30,000, but anyway, still a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know about I don't know about traditional Chinese gods. That is definitely not my forte. But I feel like there might be something there in like traditional Chinese.
Well, actually, now that I think about it, interesting that
there is a Chinese god of thieves. Sorry, continue.
Okay, so
Apollo.
Yeah.
Apollo, right? If I remember correctly, Apollo had some sort of connection to thieves.
I thought Apollo was just the asshole who had like a bow and he drove his chariot through the sky, and that's what pulled the sun through the sky.
And the early myths, myths of Apollo's childhood say that he stole some other god's herd of cattle because he was hungry.
Okay, well then in that sense, like, okay, yes, like Loki has stolen a ton of shit, so Loki's kind of a god of thieves, but
yeah, he's that's that trickster thing, like thievery kind of fits into trickster stuff, but it's not.
Yeah, but like as like a thing itself, you don't really find that, but there's always some kind of god or one or two gods or spirits that are aligned with stuff like that or bad things. Like the trickster spirit in several Native American religions in North America. Who's the trickster in Hinduism? I genuinely can't remember. I wanted to say Hanuman because like monkeys and like being kind of tricky, but I still feel like that's not accurate.
That's a pretty common.
Hanuman is seen as like a protective god, so I'm like,
yeah, that's a pretty common thing for like a monkey symbolism is very tricky and
there's trickster
like
rabbits in West African and like deep Southern folklore in the United States. So like again, like there's always kind of tricksters and stuff like that, but there isn't really like there's no like ancient Aztec cult of yes, we all hail the god of thieves. Oh, I lost my stuff. Well, that's the god of thieves for you. Like there isn't really anything like that, but there has always been some kind of connection and acknowledgement that like thievery and crime is a part of existence, so therefore it falls into someone's sphere, but it's never looked upon as something to be venerated.
That there is an Aztec deity of mischief, music, dance, mischief, and song. I have no idea how to pronounce that.
Okay, then. I didn't know that.
Coyotl?
Hermes is the Greek god of thieves.
Yeah. Oh, and that Chinese
can run so fast.
Okay,
well, that Chinese one. Let's see. It gives me a pronunciation here. Songjiang.
Songjiang.
Yeah.
Is tricky because this is actually okay, so again, Chinese history gets real fucking hard to differentiate from fiction after you go back long enough. And this is a character from the Water Margin, which is most people would argue is a fictional story, but it's semi-fictional at the very best. It's hard to say, but that's never really stopped people from again, Chinese culture being the way it is, you could argue that they worship Songjiang, but that's not necessarily what's happening.
I just looked up Chinese god of thieves, and that was what popped up.
And that's what I found as well. And like what I'm reading is that this is a like the way that you would big air quotes worship this person is somewhat similar to the way that you would worship an actual god, but in China, gods and ancestors blend together much like the way they do for the Altmer. So, by the way, P.S. If anybody's looking for real world inspiration on how the Altmer worship, can't go wrong with China.
No, absolutely.
The organization that I was thinking of was the Thuggy in India.
Oh, and that Mexican saint is Jesus Malverde. He is the Cuba Lord, Angel of the Poor, or the narco saint. He is often seen as a Robin Hood figure. Steals from the rich to give to the poor.
Yeah.
But
Man, talk about cross-cultural boundaries, right? There's always some kind of Robin Hood-esque figure. I remember hearing about one from Mongolia where he stole sheep to give them to those who had no sheep, and I'm like, that is so Mongolian.
Yeah. Is it Mongolian or New Zealand? So
what's the difference between Mongolia and New Zealand? They're both remote, desolate, barely populated, and with scary
sheep.
Locals.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess
and strange music.
Well, I don't know. Have you heard the Who? They're fun.
They're badass.
People keep telling me to listen to them. I've heard of them. I'm not a fan. I'm just not.
Really?
Just not.
Okay. Admittedly, there is some controversy around the Who for them basically being borderline Mongolian fascists.
Oh, really?
Ooh.
Yeah, apparently they've said some politically
hence
not
the whole
great shit.
Who thing, and with all the Mongolian bikers, it's like the Horde again, and a lot of those bikers are like Mongolia from Mongolia, and just like, okay.
Yeah, because I know like their lyrics are talking about we'll drive the Mongol dogs out of Morrowind, and
they got the word listening to the Who.
We're the descendants of Genghis Khan, and this kind of thing. I just assumed that was edgy lyrics.
No, that's also part of why they have the super fancy horse fiddle heads and the modern Horde is the one with the bow and everything, but the guy playing the kind of Mongolian guitar lute thing, it's shaped like a bow and an arrow because again, warfare and all that, and honoring the ancient Mongol horde and how powerful.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
But
again, it's just
because their music videos are really
but they
high
haven't
quality.
really denied them either. So just take it or leave it.
If you're looking for something vaguely metal that has a very strong Eastern traditional feeling to it, I would recommend a French band called Grorr, Grorr. Who do their keyboard player actually plays a million instruments, traditional instruments from a whole bunch of different cultures, and they do some songs with tube and throat singing in it and all kinds of good shit. I would highly recommend them. They just put out an album very recently that's very good. That's that was a soundtrack for a film they tried to get made, an animated film they tried to get made. And
now I'm just imagining hearing bells and throat singing as the sounds when you're going through Red Mountain.
On an unrelated note, to bring it back to the Thieves Guild for
sure, all right.
Like the fifth time.
So to bring it back to what we're supposed to be here talking about, I'm assuming you guys already touched on Nocturnal's relation to the Thieves Guild, how it arguably, quote unquote, depending on how you interpret the Thieves Guild questline in ESO, arguably started in Hammerfell. So quick question for some people there, because this is normally my area of expertise, but even then I don't know for certain. Is there an equivalent of a Red Guard group of thieves, a Red Guard group of thieves similar to how the Dunmer have their own Assassin's Guild known as the Morag Tong? So is there a Red Guard? I know I've seen some people when doing mods and concept art for stuff, and I have some saved on this computer somewhere. They've created some kind of version of like a Redguard Thieves Guild, and I forget the name of it, but has there been any mention of that, or do people think that such a thing would even be likely to exist? Like, what are our thoughts on this?
Well, Red Guard culture in general, just starting from a very, very, very top-down perspective, the Red Guard culture is going to strongly sway it in favor of like the warrior sign. So, but I would say the same thing about Nordic culture, and that didn't stop them from having a Thieves Guild. So, also you've got a very strong propensity towards the Thieves Guild with the attitude reflected by Cyrus the Restless, in form of sort of like wink, wink, piracy, sort of wink, wink.
Right. Actually, yeah, that is a good point. Is that like Redguards love to be? They also love to be corsairs and mercenaries, raiding and plundering posts and being hired on like ships and stuff. So
now I want a pirate guild in TS6.
I know, huh? I know,
like,
man.
If TES 6 does not give me at least some vaguely Caribbean Redguards the way we got in the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard, and if they don't give me some Black Flag like naval battles where I can sink Thalmor ships and sun ships, I'm not going to like that game as much as I know I could have liked it.
Vehicles are a big ask in that engine, man. They're hard to do.
Then just one mission, make it part of the main quest or something. Just let me blow up a Thalmor sun ship. Just
I know.
and actually, now that I think about it, if the Red Guards are inspired a little bit by Ottoman tradition as well, they're going to have some crazy cannons. Especially if you've got magic to help with crafting.
Red Guards don't like magic.
I wouldn't be surprised if
not
there was...
true.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was something about the Ashaba and connections to the Thieves Guild, simply for again with the kind of the talk of the Thieves Guild as a mutual society sort of thing, just as a way for the Ashaba to get by, almost just having some of them who will steal and bring to those who are starving in the desert while they watch vigil over all of the tombs and stuff. I'm sure I remember hearing something about some sort of connection with the Ashaba and the Thieves Guild, but I couldn't tell you what. I'm trying to dig it out, but
it's like
actually here's a question: which province would be most likely to have little to no Thieves Guild members present or guild presence?
Somerset?
I was about to say Somerset, but they've got one in ESO.
I mean, they've got the whole Apraxis thing that, I mean, I guess that could...
Hear me out. I know it sounds kind of cray.
Yokuda.
No, if we're talking about Tamriel, I think the place, canonically speaking, least likely to have any kind of Thieves Guild involvement.
Are you gonna say Black Marsh?
No, because they have the shadow scales with the assassins, so it kind of makes sense to still have like thievings and like hide stuff in the swamp. Just let me finish my fucking sentence. I think it's Valenwood.
Oh yeah, I see that.
Oh yeah, okay.
I
sure.
really
Because
see that.
between like the Green Pact, so that limits like what you can do and hide and harm. There's the Wild Hunt. You have the Sylvanar, which is kind of like the spiritual guide of the people. And again, really want to emphasize here the Green Pact. And so by providing most of these things, it kind of limits what can happen. You may have like smugglers, importing stuff like, oh yeah, man, look at this sweet mahogany imported right from elsewhere. Hell
you already have, but you also have...
This is a Red Guard salad.
But you also have, to some degree, I mean, it's not a sport, sure, but there's the ritualized stealing of objects from between.
Yeah, that's what LJ pointed out. That's what I was going to
tribes.
Yeah,
the right of theft. The right of theft.
So, but because it's formalized in that respect in Valenwood, doesn't that sort of also serve as a reason to not have a thief? It's sort of like how I would argue that elsewhere might not have a Thieves Guild, because theft is so prominent in, and I don't mean this as a dig at Khajiit, but because Khajiit have this relationship with ownership, like the idea of a thieves guild would sort of be like, I would imagine
Yeah.
to a certain degree, because she would kind of look at it as like, why wrap a name around it, man? That's just what we do.
Yeah,
It's
everyone
like-
does that.
It's like how a lot of, or some southern states don't have an NFL team because they just have college football.
Right. Yeah, they don't.
Who needs an
college
NFL
football's
team?
so big that they don't bother with an NFL team because why? We've got the NCAA. We got. I'd rather watch people play the game for the passion of playing the game than watch people play it because they're being paid to.
America is so weird, not gonna lie. But
We just have. We're just very good at cognitive dissonance.
true.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? We're guilty of that too in Canada. But
yeah.
to continue on this thread with the Thieves Guild and like more likely like ritualized in Valenwood, then okay, fine. With regards to the Thieves Guild in elsewhere, I forget if it was like an out of game source or not, but I seem to recall reading somewhere that like there definitely was at least like 1 or 2 Thieves Guild chapters like somewhere, and I don't know if maybe that was an ESO or like an out of game reference, but I'm pretty sure I've heard before that there is still like an official Thieves Guild. But I do agree in principle with your point, Chris, about how if anything the Khajiit would say this is kind of something we do, so don't really wrap a name around it. They might have like kind of like different they might have different gangs the same way how different gangs have different drug smuggling operations and drug selling operations. But at the end of the day, it's like you're also slinging hash on the fucking streets with kids around. Like, it's still just equally.
We're slinging it to them. What's wrong with that?
So I'm just saying it could be one of those things. But again, if I had to pick, and even then, I feel like probably Valenwood would have a Thieves Guild anyway. But if I had to pick any of the like provinces and races that would not have a Thieves Guild, it would be the Bosmer.
Yeah,
that's how I feel relatively strongly about that.
I think that's the best argument. Yeah,
given the structure of Breton society, I'm betting they have the most intense Thieves Guild.
Oh yeah, like no, that is like micromanaging to like, okay, listen, it's the Thieves Guild, but so and so is in charge of the Daggerfall
they
chapter.
Have paperwork.
This person's in charge of the Wayrest chapter. This person's in charge of the Rothgarian Mountains. This person's in charge of North Point, and then you have all your little underlings, and then there's like middle management saying, look, our grip here is really only this road on the north coast, okay? Like that is our thing.
And only when it's eastbound. If you want westbound, you have to go down the hall to room 27C. And by the way, I'm not picking up a single septum without somebody filling out a 27B stroke 6.
Oh yeah.
In triplicate.
And the person in charge of the Breton of like the High Rock Thieves Guild is literally some stressed out 65-year-old like bean counter who just like does not have time for your shit. He's like, right, yeah, okay, that's been filed correctly, that's been filed correctly.
Just a
this
mountain
doesn't
of
conflict
paper.
with these other thieves. And yeah, okay, so like this was stolen by this person and it was stolen again from this person. If you can return it to this person and steal that thing and get it over here, like
and
like,
this is my receipt for your receipt. Yeah.
It's basically they're just like proactive accountants and tax collectors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like that. Like that's basically how I imagine High Rock to be.
Did anybody read any of the Discworld novels?
Nope.
Oh yes.
Yeah, I know James got me on this. The Thieves Guild in Discworld is absolutely run by bureaucracy. It's it's absolutely like, I'm sorry, but you haven't paid your dues this month. And as a result, we're going to send somebody around to steal from you on this week. Would Wednesday at around 8 p.m. work for you?
Yeah, it's kind of literally someone gets stopped in the street. Is like, hello, this is unofficial burglary. If you could please hand over your bits and pieces. Oh, and by the way, or you could pay your exemption here. And by the way, as a visitor to Ankh-Morpork and you're going through the city. Here, have this set of complimentary spoons from the tourist office.
We're running
by the Thieves Guild.
We're running a special on gold tier this month. You get this tote bag.
Yeah, but the Thieves Guild in Ankh-Morpork and the Discworld at large is basically just a it's a thing that if it's a a concept between it's a protection racket basically.
Yeah.
It's just you will get robbed unless you pay the Thieves Guild money, and this is entirely sanctioned by government because if they
didn't sanction it, we'd steal the government.
Well, if the thieves are too busy collecting dues and being paid to not rob, then they won't rob.
Yeah.
And now I'm imagining a Thieves Guild operation that's just basically a giant pyramid scheme.
It kind of is. And like the Thieves Guild is self-enforcing because the one thing they don't want is people doing unsanctioned theft. So like the worst thing that a person can do is steal something without getting permission from the Thieves Guild, because then the Thieves Guild comes down on them for stealing something from somebody who's paid them. So it's great.
Isn't it actually like a quest in Morrowind too? Like Morrowind pulled that shit.
There is. Why? Yeah, there is a text that basically points out if you're not a member of the Thieves Guild in a particular place, then they will come and break your legs for being on their turf. I can't remember whether it is Morrowind, but I'm sure I remember reading something like that.
Yeah.
But you don't. It's not quite the Discord levels of where you get cries of "Stop, unlicensed thief."
Yeah, it's not. It's not that Pratchett, but it's pretty Pratchett.
By the way, I was like trying to stifle a laugh because I had this idea in my head of like in that world you have Billy Mays also selling sort of premium anti-thievery membership. It's like, but wait, there's more. Call now, we'll give you 2 free robberies, 2 free exemptions for robberies for the price of 1. You can't get that anywhere else, so call now.
Not quite in those terms, but yes.
That is what the Somerset Isles Thieves Guild looks like.
Oh yeah, ultra bureaucracy. Yeah.
Well, more the.
Where do you think the Bretons got it from?
Yeah, right.
The Bretons is basically just an accounting firm.
Well, I think we've got good stuff coming next week. Actually, I honestly don't know when we're going to do a cast next because how crazy things are.
Yep.
I think next weekend I'm going to almost be. Next weekend I'm moving. Okay, and then stop that, please. And then let's see. The weekend of the 12th, I'm in a hotel, and then weekend of the 19th, I don't know where I am. I don't know if I'll be homeless the 19th. Probably.
So appropriate that we talked about the Thieves Guild and their treatment of the homeless.
I should have an apartment on the 19th. So theoretically, we could do something. If we're very lucky, I'll have my computers and everything set up on the 19th, and we'll be able to do a cast. Keep everybody abridged in the Discord, which you should join. If you have any questions, comments, or whatever, anything you want answered on the air, please, by all means, email us at selectiveslorecast@gmail.com. And
what's the next cast? What are we doing next?
Next is Warriors Guild.
Fighters Guild.
Fighters Guild. Okay.
Yep.
Fighters Guild, Warriors
not
Guild.
necessarily just the Fighters Guild, but their equivalents too.
I was going to say we'll have to see how that one goes.
Yep, we'll see. We'll see.
I assume that won't include the companions.
I don't think there's enough of the companions to just.
Bye everybody.
Bye.